She didn't start in a corner office. She started in a cubicle so small the chair barely rolled back. Her name was Arielle Johnson, and on her first day in tech, the badge around her neck felt heavier than it should have. Not because of the plastic, but because of what it represented. She was one of only 2 black women on the entire engineering floor. The other worked nights and had already warned her quietly in the elevator. Keep her seats. Smile, but don't get comfortable. Arielle laughed it off back then. She thought hard work would be enough. She had worked her way here already. First-generation college graduate, student loans that followed her like shadows, nights spent teaching herself to code while working retail to pay rent. She believed talent rises. She believed merit matters. What she didn't know yet was that talent threatens people who benefit from the system staying exactly the same. Her manager's name was Greg. Greg introduced himself as a straight shooter. What that really meant was he never missed an opportunity to remind Arielle she was lucky to be here. He mispronounced her name in meetings, Arielle, Andrea, Alicia, even after being corrected. He joked about how diversity hires were changing the culture. He smiled when he said it, so no one challenged him. When Arielle submitted clean, elegant code, Greg told her it was surprisingly good. When a white male colleague submitted the same quality work, Greg called it brilliant. She noticed patterns early. Her idea showed up later, spoken by someone else, credited to someone else. Her emails went unanswered until she followed up 3 times. Her performance reviews were always positive, but never glowing enough for promotion. "You're doing great," Greg would say, "just not ready yet." Ready for what? She wondered. She stayed late, came in early, volunteered for the projects no one wanted, the broken systems, the legacy code, the impossible deadlines. She fixed things quietly, efficiently, without applause. And that scared Greg, because the more indispensable she became, the harder it was to justify keeping her invisible. So he changed tactics. He stopped inviting her to meetings where decisions were made. He reassigned her projects right before deadlines. He documented her tone instead of her results. Once, after she calmly pushed back on a flawed approach during a meeting, Greg pulled her aside. "You need to be careful," he said. "You don't want to come off as aggressive." Aggressive. The words sat heavy in her chest. She went home that night and stared at her laptop, hands shaking, not from fear, but from rage she'd learned to swallow whole. She thought about quitting, thought about whether peace was worth more than potential. But then she thought about the younger version of herself, coding on a borrowed laptop, believing this world could change. And she decided she wasn't leaving. She started keeping records, emails, dates, versions of code, meeting notes, not because she wanted revenge, but because she knew the truth would matter one day. Outside of work, she kept learning. Cloud systems, security, architecture, leadership. She built projects no one asked for, solved problems no one noticed. And slowly, people outside of Greg's orbit began to notice. A director from another department started asking for her input. A VP forwarded her an email. This was impressive. Who led this? Recruiters began reaching out. Greg felt it slipping. He scheduled a career development meeting and told her she should be realistic about her trajectory, that maybe management wasn't her lane. Arielle smiled politely. What Greg didn't know was that Arielle had already interviewed internally, quietly, strategically. And when the offer came, it didn't just move her teams, it moved her out from under him. Her new role came with visibility, budget authority, and a seat at the table. For the first time, she spoke and people listened. Years passed. Arielle rose again and again. Each role came with resistance. Each level had someone who underestimated her. But she had learned the rules and when to rewrite them. She built teams differently. She hired people others overlooked. She created mentorship pipelines. She documented processes so no one could hoard power through ambiguity. And one day, the board called her in. The company was struggling. Innovation had stalled. Culture was broken. They needed new leadership. They asked if she would step in as CEO. Arielle accepted without hesitation. On her first day as CEO, she stood in the same building where she once sat invisible. The office looked different now. from the top floor, but the memories hadn't faded. She called an all-hands meeting. She talked about vision, about accountability, about building technology that served people, not egos. Then she talked about truth. She talked about how talent exists everywhere, but opportunity does not. How systems fail when they reward comfort over courage. How leadership isn't about control, it's about responsibility. Greg sat in the back of the room. He didn't recognize her authority at first. Old habits die hard, but the org chart didn't lie anymore. A few months later, after a formal review process based on documented performance, not favoritism, Greg was let go. Not out of spite, out of alignment. Arielle didn't celebrate. She didn't need to, because the victory wasn't his exit, it was her presence. She climbed every rung they tried to remove. She had survived every closed door by building her own. She had turned isolation into clarity, resistance into resolve. And now, somewhere on that same engineering floor, a young black woman sat at her first tech job, nervous and hopeful. This time, when the elevator doors opened, Arielle stepped in beside her. And quietly, she said, "You belong here, and I've got you."